You're with the Breaker-Leggers, and we are in Coventry at the Empire for the launch of a brand new musical.
Yes, the new musical Will Live and Die in These Towns, which is based on the music of the enemy. So stay tuned to find out more.
So what are we doing here at the Empire?
Well, we're at a press launch for a brand new British musical called Will Live and Die in These Towns. Takes its name from the debut album of the Coventry-based band The Enemy, and it features music from that debut album. It was #1. It was a huge success back in 2007.
Now, this piece, you say, is going to be launched at the Belgrade Theatre in September.
Yes.
Musical director.
Yes, is the former frontman, I should say, of The Enemy himself, Tom Clark. The artistic director of the Belgrade, Hamish Glenn, is directing this piece, and it's been written by a local lad, Coventry writer Jeff Thompson.
So let's go and check it out. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to the writer, the director and the musical director and see what they've got to say about this.
It's all very exciting.
So the Breaker-Leggers are delighted to say that we have the musical director and the actual writer with us.
We are. That is Jeff Thompson and Tom Clark. Tom Clark, former frontman of The Enemy, and now sort of a new role for you, bit of a change of pace here. So firstly for you, Jeff, I mean, being a Coventrian, is that the right terminology?
It is now.
It is now. I'm thinking Martian, Coventrian,
Coventrian.
being based in Coventry.
It must feel a very special project to be involved with. Can you tell us about the story and about your inspiration for it?
Yeah, well, it's special for lots of reasons, because I'm working with Tom, who's, I'm a massive fan of Tom and The Enemy. I'm working with the Belgrade. The Belgrade is the theatre I love. And I'm writing about something that's really close to my heart, which is about fear, about overcoming fear. And it's placed in a fictional narrative that allows us to explore every facet of it and show how ordinary people can do extraordinary things if they're able to go beyond that terror barrier, which everybody faces. And it's not about getting rid of fear, it's about learning to ride fear. And it's showing that there is a historical precedence with fear. Whether you look at Arjuna Pandava in the Bhagavad Gita, which the story arc is based on, or if you look at Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, or if you look at Muhammad on the mountain, if you look at Mandela when he went to prison for 30 years, these are all people that were so afraid that they crumbled before they built themselves back up and then put out a message to the world. And the message to the world was, the kingdom or the potential is in you. You don't need anybody else for it, it's in you. So it's a universal message, it's always been there. We want to bring it into a very modern narrative and say to people, you're not unusual because you're afraid. We're doing this programme now, I'm afraid. I am afraid, absolutely. And Tom would be I hope I'm not speaking out of term, Tom, but you always talk about the fact that you get anxiety and that you're afraid as well. Yeah. So it's part of our story, but I think that fear is the doorway to potential. If we can refocus our perception.
I think change coming from within in order to make change.
Yeah.
Where does your desire come from, Jeff, in terms of wanting to almost make an audience, it seems, feel uncomfortable, push them outside of their comfort zone?
Because when I was suffering with depression and I was waking up at 4 a.m, cold with sweat, in a house full of people but completely alone, when I was in that place, and I went to books and I went to films to try and get answers to my problems, to understand why I was so afraid, the books that promised to tell me the answers didn't. Either they didn't know the answer, or they were too afraid to say the answer, or the answer wasn't socially acceptable. And I promised that when I found the truth, I was going to tell everybody. And that's been my story ever since. So every time I have an area where I feel a particular amount of anxiety, I sit in that, I write about it, I put it in front of an audience, and that helps me to expand my own consciousness, but it also hopefully will help members of the audience to go, that's me, that's how I feel.
Okay.
Amazing. And for you, Tom, I mean, it's been more than 10 years since the album Will Live and Die in These Towns was released. How has your relationship with the songs changed since they've been put into this brand new story?
I think my relationship with those songs is always changing. When I first wrote them, they were just 10 of my latest ideas, and then you release it and it's an album that becomes adopted by lots of people, although before that happened, there was, you know, the massive wave of popularity. So at that point, you know, Radio 1 owned the songs, it felt like, because that was where they lived. And then there's been times when I've hated the songs because I've been on tour playing them every night, and you just get so bored of them, and then it comes back around, and 10 years on I love them. And I think it's really nice that they're finding a different place. You know, they've got a sort of and I think it's nice that they've inspired Jeff to create something else, that something that I created 10 years ago has inspired the creation of something now. Yeah, that's quite a cool domino effect, and hopefully, you know, the musical will inspire someone else to create something else, and you know, and then it keeps going.
Have a life of its own forever, hopefully.
Yeah. And what's interesting, Tom, as well, is I'm sat in a garage, you don't know me, and I'm training and I'm listening to your songs, and there's no way you could know that it's going to affect some strange guy in another part of the city who at some point is going to write a story. That's what I love about the idea, that you put the work out there, and you don't know who it's talking to, you don't know where it's going to land, you don't know who it's going to act as an intercessor for. So I love the idea that Tom's records are out there and they're still touching people, they're still moving people, and hopefully this will enable us to take it to another level, you know, because it will work in theatre. We're going to do a film as well.
Yeah, wow.
You know.
So what challenges have you had so far getting the project to where it is at the moment?
For me, I find that when my own fear dissolves, when I look at my own fear and I dissect it and dissolve it, things happen. It's me that's in my own way all the time. I'm working on another project at the moment where people are sabotaging themselves left, right and centre, and I recognise it in myself. I wanted this so much, I nearly pushed it away. I wanted to be involved in it so much, I nearly pushed it away. But this kind of thing does put you absolutely in front of your own fears, because it brings, like I said, it's like a poultice. It will bring up all of your desires to own it, all of your desires to want to, you know, to keep it to yourself, to have your name splattered everywhere. But for me, I recognise that I'm a vessel. I'm a good vessel. Sometimes I'm not, but I'm usually a good vessel.
You try.
And it will come through me, and I'll try to let it go, which is what I love about Tom, because he's basically saying these aren't my songs.
Yes.
And I'm saying to him, this isn't my story. I played my part in it. And if whatever it brings up in me, good and bad, I want to look at it, you know, and hopefully it will. The main thing for me is I want someone to watch it and go, I'm not on my own. I feel like that. I feel afraid. And if Jeff feels afraid and Tom feels afraid and they're having a degree of success, then it's okay.
It's okay, yeah, absolutely. What about for you, Tom? Sort of, what's your, especially in this new role as musical director, what's your sort of challenge?
Mainly learning how to be a musical director.
Of course.
I've never done it before, and that in itself is scary. But I think that, the whole point of the production, if I couldn't get over that initial fear of I've never done this before, then kind of missing the point of the entire production. So
That's a good point, Tom, yeah.
Gonna give it a go and work with some musicians and do something I've never done before and try and teach them how to play our songs. And the songs are in weird keys, so it's going to be quite interesting. And working with someone else who's possibly got a completely different vocal range to me and working out where that all fits. But musicians are musicians at the end of the day, and we all speak the same language, and I'm kind of sort of fairly optimistic that we can make it work. But I have said multiple times, and I've said to everyone today, it's come with the caveat that if I'm rubbish, then people around me need to not be scared to say, you're not very good at this, Tom, we're going to get someone who is.
I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah,
It's one of those things, though, that's what we and Tom said, is that if there wasn't uncertainty, how are you going to grow?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you know it,
Yeah.
it's difficult, easy, isn't it?
And also, it makes the achievement more as well, because you are so uncertain about it. Well, we're definitely so excited about it. It's sort of a homegrown piece of theatre right here in Coventry. So thank you so much for putting it
pleasure.
together.
And we look forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you very much, guys.
So we're here with Hamish Glenn, who's artistic director at the Belgrade Theatre, but also director of Will Live and Die in These Towns. Thank you so much for chatting with us. Pleasure. Coventry has got such a great history of producing fantastic music, but how do you think the medium of theatre can sort of add something to that?
My whole life has been dedicated to theatre. Theatre can do something that no other art form can do, which is tell resonant stories live and sort of in the face of audiences. So all the music's played live, the storytelling's live. That's what we can bring.
That's something we always say, that it's a different medium to watching something on TV. The fact that you were there and you were involved in something that is being created and is very organic.
Breathing the same air.
Exactly.
Yeah, something very
Exactly.
special.
There's something different about watching a screen. A screen is a screen is a screen. Being there in 3 dimensions with actors and musicians telling a story is a different thing.
Brilliant. And also, another question for you. We're thinking, what does this piece mean to you as you take the Belgrade into its 60th anniversary?
Funnily enough, there's a really happy coincidence
Oh.
of the Belgrade that's always told local stories, use local artists to make universal work. And this arrives right at the right moment for the Belgrade 60th, its history, the city's history, year of culture. It just lands. It's a contemporary story for Coventry.
And is this a coincidence, or have you had this on the back burner waiting for this right moment to
I am a
happen?
genius. And it's all planned.
part
And
of
it's
the
all
master
planned. No,
plan.
there is some serendipity about it. It's just happened to all come good.
Well, it sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
And we wish you all the best.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Brilliant.
So there we go. What do you think of that then? How does it sound?
I think it sounds good. If there's anything to go by, and then talking about the story, it's going to be gritty, it's going to be edgy, and it's going to be local. It's going to tell a local person's story in a local setting, and that's
Yeah.
what local theatre should be, right?
I think that's what got my interest up. The writer's point of view, saying that, it needs to move an audience and it's not all fluffy and la la la. I like grit in a musical.
Love a bit of balls in a musical.
I like a bit of balls. I like, being uncomfortable and stuff. And it sounds as if this is what the writer is going for.
Yeah.
So potential in that regard.
Hopefully we'll bring you some a review from Press Night a little bit later in the year. So make sure you hit subscribe and you'll be the first to find out about that. We're the Breaker Leggers and we'll catch you again soon.
Bye!